Oh, first of all, thank you for what you share and the way you share it, because it's so free. Um, there is a quality of freedom and lightness, which is so
Mm.
needed when you talk about these topics. So yeah, that really resonates with me.
Oh, thank you.
Um, and the topic today is very interesting. And I feel like really briefly, before I will be called from my son,
Yeah.
sharing. I've been experiencing abuse, and I had also the experience, like you touched earlier, of that expansiveness that was aware of the abuse, or the one in my family who apparently was abusing me. And it's quite amazing, the polarity, because you feel hurt, and also you see that the person doesn't know what he's doing, or is just acting out of patterns
Totally.
that he's not in control of.
Yeah.
And it's like living two different lives. It's really interesting. And
Mm.
then when I go into meditation, I teach meditation, and the more I teach, the more I learn, and the deeper I go. And
Mm.
I can be in that very spacious place where everything is seen as it is, and
Mm.
also at the same time see the little me that is hurt. It is
Mm.
a very interesting um, position in which to be.
Yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
at time it can be confusing, because it seems to be to have different personalities.
Yeah, totally.
uh,
Like you're a schizophrenic because when you feel very
yes,
identified, then it will be so awful what that person is doing to you.
exactly,
And then when you feel less identified, you just can feel total and utter love for that person. So,
exactly.
and
And you
then
see them as a child.
yeah, yeah, and their words, or their actions are like nothing. Like they're, but it doesn't mean that. So then there needs to be wisdom brought into it because it doesn't mean that you have to tolerate that in any way. Because the problem is that when you're waking up, like it can be like nothing, and therefore we let in what's negative for us. So it's
Mm,
like they're that you see them as total innocence and you see them as total love, and there can be
yes,
like pain in your body from the way they act, but it also can be like nothing. But if you
mm,
don't put up the appropriate boundaries and stop it, then it means that you can let more and more of that in your life, ironically. So it's then also
exactly.
like there has to be a wisdom of, on the human level, of how to keep that out and to like why on the human level is that being allowed in.
Mm. Yes, because it's really hard on the human level. I mean, if we want to talk, about spiritual level, just to understand each other on the
Yeah.
spiritual level, it's somehow much easier, because I can contemplate on what happened, and I can write down and meditate, and I can
Yeah.
see really, really clearly, with no doubts, how easily I can forgive from that
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
because the person is completely unconscious. And yet there is pain in my chest, at the same
Mm.
time, because of
Mm.
what has been said, and it's something that happened since I was little, etc. Kind of family, the dynamics, basically.
Mm.
Um,
Totally. Yeah.
so I'm there, experiencing the pain in my chest,
Yeah.
and also a part of me that is completely okay with it, and it's happening more and more often. And in my mind, I think, oh, but then the spaciousness will win against the pain
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
feel in the
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
shouldn't be like this. I should be accepting, even in my body, feeling and sensations, but it's not. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of accepting that something in me is not accepting.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting journey.
Yeah. And and is there any possibility to like work with someone who can help? Because when you're in the situation and when it's been a family dynamic, it's very difficult to see the situation without your projections. So you might have like
Mm,
moments where there's no projection and where there's just love for them. But then when you go back
yes.
into it, like you'll get triggered into your way of being. And is there anyone that you can like speak with or who can help like navigate it so that you two can like change your dynamic in some way? Because that's
I
also
just used
possible.
to. Mm, yes, it sounds like a good idea. However, it's true that there is a lot of past between us, so I'm always the one who, let's go, let go of whatever is said, and etc. And there is this kind of dynamic of the victim and the perpetrator, and I feel like I've always been used to sort things on my own. I don't really ask for help. Also because I'm a teacher, and so I always the one who holds a space for so many people every day. And then yet, I'm here, and I in my own life, in my own relationships, there is some kind of stuck dynamics when, for example, I get a really good feedback from my students and say, oh, thank you so much, you sorting out my relationships. And I feel like laughing, because then I see, wow, and I'd actually, it is easier to help other people that me helped. So I will ponder on that. Nobody comes to mind that can.
I ask for help with my relationships. Like, I know that I can't, you can't, we get into this mentality, I think, where we believe that waking up will sort out all the human stuff. And it will sort it out to an extent. But so say with like a family member of mine, I can't really talk too personally about my family members, because
of course
they don't want to be spoken about on the internet. But say if I talk theoretically about a family member, and I'll make something up. So say if I had like an aunt who me and them, or there was always conflict between us, and I always felt like they were being very passive aggressive to me. You can't, that's your feeling. So that would be my feeling in the situation, is I feel that they're being passive aggressive, and that to me is what's true in that moment, is that's how I feel. But that's not necessarily the way the situation is, because it's impossible for us to step out of it and actually see these dances of energies that are happening between two people, and the miscommunications that are happening. And so in order to, all the time, in order to heal that, I think there needs to be like an outside perspective. Like sometimes, especially when you're in the teacher role, you have this weight on your shoulders where you think, okay, I've got to work all this out myself because I can see it in other people. But it's very difficult when you can't look, you can't watch your body. I mean, like recording the situation, I don't think that recording people without their knowledge is appropriate. And if they know, then they start acting differently. But if we were to record and then to play it back, you could see maybe gestures that you're having that you're unconscious of is then triggering reactions in other people, but you can't see that. Like when people give you feedback, so people can give me feedback that maybe sometimes I'm a bit elusive. And it's true, so as soon as conflict happens, there was a bit of conflict that happened today, potential conflict that happened today, and I could see that my tendency was not to text back to the person. So my tendency was to avoid that and to go on to do something else. So that is a tendency. But if I hadn't had people point that out to me, you can't necessarily see that about yourself. You can't necessarily see the facial gestures that you're giving to people. You can go into your feelings and you can be really honest with your feelings, but you don't really know how that's coming across to other people. So, bringing in a third party is really good to change dynamics, and not expecting that waking up, or even your spiritual practice where you're getting to know yourself, is necessarily going to fix an interaction between two people. So even if you know yourself really deeply, you can't necessarily see how your body is coming across to other people or how you're behaving in a situation. And sometimes it's just learned behaviors that are so impersonal and don't have charge to them. I'm sure that my parents demonstrated that to me, so say if there's conflict, that they moved away from it, and it's not even something I could feel. It's just, I noticed it today, but it's just a tendency, and there's nothing wrong with our tendencies. So doing something like that, because sometimes in spirituality we do avoid these things and then we let them carry on, and we use this passivity to let them carry on. Yes. But also on the same, from speaking about all of that, then coming back to it and just really seeing who is abused, like the great freedom in that. So if your uncle is shouting at you or being passive aggressive or being really inappropriate, like who is it that's also being abused? There is nobody.
It's an image.
It's an image, yeah, and an energy,
It's the
like
image
so,
of,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and
it's the
that
image of,
yeah. Sorry, I think the internet's a
no,
bit
no,
slow,
you
but yeah,
go.
you see. So it's an image, and then an energy that then comes in the body from that image of like I'm behind my eyes, whereas actually there is nobody behind the eyes. Like, and when this is known so deeply, it's like love. Like even
Yes.
if there's like tension in the body, like from them being scary, like there's fear of them in the body, there is on this other level like absolute love, like they are a movement as you, in you.
Yeah, and at the same time, you have to put boundaries. It's
Yeah,
really such a balance, because
yeah,
the human boundaries you have to put. I'm really kind of a really calm person as a, as a character, I say.
yeah,
Um, and so for me, I never raise my voice back, or I rather understand where they are at, and
yeah,
say, okay, I don't agree, you're not listening to me, okay, bye, and I remove myself from the situation. However, I can see that sometimes also, as I love them and as I see who they are, I will also respond more assertively and put a boundary. So it's such a deep learning, really, on the human
yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah. And in, like sometimes being really firm is appropriate. Sometimes raising the voice slightly is appropriate.
Yes. Yes,
It's,
exactly. It's like not an optional I have in my machine, but I should.
yeah,
Sometimes you do a life that wants to be spiritual, and instead those things are really important. Being able to raise the voice when it's needed,
yeah.
yeah, or
And if
or
you
to be firm.
and if you ever reflected, like got your other family members to reflect stuff back, I know they've got all their projections onto it and all their ideas and their feelings, but have you ever like asked their
Yes,
opinions? Oh yeah,
yes, but they think it's crazy that I've been basically treated like that. So they see me as a victim because they see this person basically has no much control, so just basically reacts, and I just let it be, and I say, okay, did you finish? Okay, let's talk more calmly about this. And he doesn't control himself. So when also other people in my family see that, they think it's outrageous that he keeps going like that with no stop. But he has actually no control, and I see this like a child that has a lot of anger, and so people think that some people think I should scream back, which I don't have in me. Some people think that I just should like not talk to him anymore, which I can't
yeah,
do because I do. I do love him.
yeah, yeah,
And then
totally.
nobody else in my life triggers me because I go on well with most people, and I don't know, it's very difficult for me to be
Yeah,
angry, to be triggered. But he has he has
yeah,
a particular button that he knows how to touch, and that really makes me feel kind of a little boy out of center. And at the same time, I see fully it's all good, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
and there is spaciousness seeing that pattern. But definitely, I will think about what you said, and
Yeah, on my
maybe
reference page, I have this YouTuber called Psychology in Seattle. So you can find it on my reference page, and
mm,
he doesn't speak about non-duality, but he does speak. He's a family therapist, and he does
mm,
speak a lot about like systems therapy and different ways of interacting and different ways of like changing interaction. And you might find
mm,
that helpful. Like it, you might he does a really interesting thing where he comments on like reality TV shows and people's behaviors and dynamics. So like a
mhm,
family, and he like sometimes he'll talk about something called like systems therapy, where it's like if you change something in that system, then it can change everybody's relationship. So for
yes,
example, like if you're in a family, like you can have different characters in the family, and one of the characters might be the one to speak out. So like the one that's very confrontational and speaks out a lot. And sometimes if you change the other, I'm not explaining it very well, but if you change the other, like that person that's always speaking out, if you had like another person that's speaking out in the family, it might actually ironically calm that person down.
Yes,
so it's a little like so with this, I meet with this women's group, and no, maybe that's not a very good example, but like say, yeah, I can't think of an example.
But I
It's too
understand,
complex.
because
Yeah.
I had this experience with a person in my family, and until last year, she was with us, and the dynamic was that one person was going mental all the time for very little insignificant things, and the other person was bringing him back. Now, unfortunately, this other person just passed away last year, and so those patterns kind of got stronger, and so it became, it became quite hard, but also very interesting to see without that other person in the dynamic how there is this kind of there are those kind of waves of anger that somehow are projected to the image of who I am and how I should be, etc., etc. And so then basically I see clearly that I have the power to see that I am not that image, and at the same time in which my body feels the pain. It's really deep learning. So I am also grateful because this person in my life is a teacher, because as I said, I don't get really triggered. I mean, I'm quite easy in letting go of things, or don't care about being right. I just, want to be at peace. So it's really much a teacher, but I will, what you said inspired me to have also other opinion by people that know the situation, and maybe to talk to them more openly about it, even if they are not, let's say, on the very conscious level resonating with me. But it would be interesting to see the side as well.
Nice. But it's really interesting with this this guy, the psychologist in Seattle. He does episodes on characters that are very peaceful in the family system. So and so there'll be a family dynamic. So there's one that I'm thinking of where from the outside, like one of the characters seems very peaceful, and doesn't really react to other people very much. And what it evokes in other people is a bullying, which is really interesting. Yeah, and his theory on it is that the person that's behaving very peaceful isn't actually being their authentic self. That's the way that they've been trained, and
Interesting.
And as that person steps more into their authentic self, this is his theory, I'm not saying it's true, but it's interesting if you watch it, then the responses of other people begin to shift. And he even goes on, like, it's really interesting, he even goes on to suggest that sometimes the person that's being very peaceful is also wanting the other people to be very chaotic, because there is a part in themselves that has that. Like, so because they were suppressed in childhood and they were taught they had to be this peaceful person, so they weren't really like allowed to authentically express their emotions, they then relied on other people to express their anger. It's really kind of cool. I'm not saying that that's your case, but I'm just using it as something for you to think about, and then also for other people to think about. Like, so the peaceful person isn't necessarily what it seems to be. Like we can never really judge what a peaceful person is or not, because who we are on the human level is often dependent on our situation. because there isn't
Yeah,
on
they
this. If we
don't
go
mean
to
this.
on the human level, there isn't really a fixed self. There is responses that happen that are conditioned. So
Yes,
there
programming.
there is more like an authentic self which can like appear, and which you can like spend time investigating and finding. But you have to really let go of any image of self to find this really authentic you, because you might be very heavily conditioned to believe that being peaceful is good and that being angry is really bad, and that showing emotion is really bad, and there has to be an unpicking of that. But it's a massive subject, and this guy, I think, maybe speaks about it a lot more eloquently than I do. And what's also really great about it is that he uses TV shows to like demonstrate it, so you can actually see it. So there's this one guy called Brendan, I think his name is, who's got like super domineering parents, and he's like so peaceful and so mellow. And if he hadn't pointed it out, I wouldn't have noticed that in a way he was creating other people's anger around him. And he was also using other people to fight his arguments. But it was really subtle. And Brendan, like the guy, I don't think Brendan had any consciousness of this. So to him, his narrative is that I'm peaceful. And that's how he felt. But then there's like this deeper level to it. It's just like, it might not, I'm not saying it's true for you. It's just something that you could watch just to explore, and it might help you and your uncle's relationship.
No, it's quite fascinating. Definitely something to contemplate on.
Yeah.
Did you say that's is your website on your what did you say?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, there's a reference page, and his YouTube. Yeah, his name is like Dr. Kirk Honda, I think, and his YouTube channel is maybe called something like Psychology in Seattle. But you'll find it on my reference page. But you have to really commit to it, because like, so I've shown these videos to people before, and like one friend who I know it would really help if they committed to it and watched like a whole season, like really watched it from beginning to start, but they found it boring, or they found like it very, in the beginning, like not very imaginative or like very obvious. But then once you watch it and you go deeper and deeper into the character and you see their behaviors more and more, you begin to realize like the subtlety of it. So on the surface, like, I couldn't get my friend to watch it because they were like, oh, this is so boring, he speaks so much about irrelevant stuff, and so they didn't make it to the end of the season. But then I got another person to watch it who also had the same reaction, but then they made it to the end of the season. They were like, okay, I get what you're trying to point out, I get it. And it was really cool to see that. So yeah, so you have to, like, if you're going to watch it, you have to like commit to watch. And the one that I would recommend is this guy called Brendan. I forgot his fiance's name. She's Russian, but it's called the one that he's commenting on. It's called 90 Day Fiance, and his name is Brendan. But when you look up his page and you begin to look up the playlist, you'll see what I mean. Like, what you'll figure it out on the YouTube.
Definitely. Also, I'm quite a curious person, so if I go into a subject, I really want to understand what it's about. So
yeah,
I'm one of those who follow up till the end. So thank you for that.
Yeah, with pleasure.
And I wanted to ask you, do you do any live talks in UK anytime?
I haven't done anything since COVID, so I haven't done anything. I haven't got anything booked for the time being, because last year, like, cancelling stuff was such a pain, like organising and cancelling. So I haven't done anything since the beginning, like, of January or February last year. And so until it's all sorted out, I don't think I'll do anything live again. Until it's all sorted out, maybe never will, but until we get some more resolution on it. Yeah.
Hopefully we will somehow.
Yeah.
Very good. Are you based in France?
Paris? No, I'm based. but I am based in mainland Europe, yeah, but not in Paris. I just feel a little bit like reluctant to say where I am on the Ustream.
Oh, sure.
On the
No, I was asking
YouTube.
only because
Yeah.
I see that you are English, so I thought maybe you do things in England. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I wear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Just yeah, I feel a little like sad to have to say that. Yeah, no, but people do all the time, and I just feel a little reluctant because I've just had some problems in the past, and so I tend to keep my whereabouts a little bit anonymous.
Yes, definitely. That's the best thing. But anyway, I'll find out on your website after consideration, because I love to listen to live talks and
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I love
It's
the way
really beautiful.
Something in you is so connected. I love the way it reverberates from you, you know, this presence. So
yeah, and I do when I am more active. I do stuff in Spain. Like I do it all around Europe. I tend not to go outside of Europe, but Spain, and I have done stuff in Italy before, but tends to be more Spain, France, Germany, England. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully for the future, and I'll try to connect to you again on the Sundays when my son is around.
Yeah,
he's
nice.
a little one.
Yeah, thank you for
expressing.
Thank you I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you, Paolo.
Yeah, me too.
That's a love.
Speak again.
Yeah.
Ciao, thank you.